Hey there. Welcome to Let's Talk. Hope you're enjoying yourself this Saturday morning. Do you have a coffee or a tea? You should totally get one and hang out with us while we chat.
We hope you've enjoyed our previous episodes. But yeah, we're back at it.
We have
It's
some juicy
Saturday.
stuff today.
Yeah, juicy.
So here's the deal. Rachel and I were talking about some things, and the pre-recording conversations are always great. So I made Rachel hit record so that we can unpack it on camera so you guys can understand the process as we go through it.
So one of the things we were talking about was confirmation bias and hindsight bias and all these, psychological phenomenons of human sociology. And I was talking about confirmation bias because it plays a huge part in all of our lives, but also can help, explain why people get stuck in an intellectual and emotional rut.
It is a societal impact. This confirmation bias.
Yeah. And it's always been there. So confirmation bias is, I'm going to do the layman's version. We can pull up the official definition if we want. But basically, you have an opinion. You quickly form an opinion because humans need to have a grid and a frame of reference for self-protection. Like we just need to grasp something. We need to know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we tend to be quick to form an opinion or to listen to someone else's opinion and absorb it if we feel like it's the right opinion. This is why you get very much like the different political parties and, different camps, like why people get so entrenched in stuff is because of confirmation bias. Yeah. And I think, in my opinion, social media has just exponentially made this bazillion times worse. Yeah. Like, for example, if you have an innate fear that someone's out to get you, and all you look at on social media is people talking about how they almost got robbed, how they just narrowly escaped getting stabbed, like, because, the algorithm will feed you what you like. So suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, everybody in America is getting like almost killed 24/7. Yeah. I mean, it's a silly example, but like the algorithm is feeding you the things that are going to confirm whatever fear or bias or idea or opinion you have.
So good.
And the caution we have on this and why we're talking about it is you have to get out of that algorithm feeding you certain information because you have to be emotionally detached enough that you can listen to the opposing side.
Can we have a moment, a rest in peace, for information in our lifetime? Okay, in Rachel and I's lifetime alone. Let's just start there. You write a report, you write a paper, you need to prove something. You could go to the library. That's what you had. You had the library. That was all. We got books. And then the libraries that had the newspapers and the things, on the records of newspapers, things that were printed. Okay. But that's all you had, right? So if you're writing a paper or a report, that the only reference you had was a book. Okay. And books have to be vetted by editors and people who know things. And they're gonna, so there's a level of what veracity, is that the right word? That comes from having a book. Then you go to the internet. And when the internet first comes out, there wasn't a lot of stuff on the internet. So when you start searching for things, there's really not a lot. Then we enter the age of everything's on the internet, but then you're taught like, hey, look at the source. You cite it. If it's someone's blog, you can't really trust that because they're just a person. They're not like, it's not a school putting out a study or whatever. Okay. Then you move on to blogs and articles and things are only so trusted because it's like written and like anyone can write anything and anything can go on the internet, right? Then we're aware of like, half the internet is fake, which is pretty much where we are right now. I think everyone has a good understanding of like, you can't just trust something because it's on the internet, which was a funny thing. Like that used to be a proof of a veracity thing of like, no, it's on the internet. Like it's legit. We know that's not true anymore. But the part that makes it worse in a way is that now we have video everywhere. And if you're reading a story or you're reading an article about someone saying something, it does not have the same impact in like your heart, spirit, soul, whatever of like, this is true, I can believe it, like it does when you're watching someone hold their phone in front of their face and be like, well, this happened to me today, because you can see their expression and their things. And you're like, no, this is a real person. Like this really happened to them. So there's this level of like, I can believe it. I don't need to doubt whether this is true or false. And I feel like that just plays such a huge, huge role in everything you were just saying, Rachel. Because like, yeah, the algorithm is going to give you the things that you want to see or things that you spend time looking up. So from your perspective, like you could be seeing so many videos a day about this one thing, and somebody else's algorithm is showing them none of it. And so to you, it feels like this overwhelming thing of like, look at all these people, when really like that, like how many times are we prepping for TCAS and one of us is like, oh, have you guys been seeing this thing going around? And the other two people are like, no, I haven't seen it, because we're all on different, we're all on different things.
Confirmation bias affects us every day, social media, all that politically affects us, socially
Big time.
affects us. It does affect us as Christians too. Like, for example, I started watching some near-death experiences. Now, the problem is when you do that, you have a whole smorgasbord of things. Like there's near-death, like I actually died clinically and I came back. Then there's well, I was injured and I kind of left my body and I came back. And then there's well, I was on drugs and had an out-of-body. There's a whole, spectrum of different experiences. And the truth is, it is confusing because there are similarities to a lot of near-death experiences, but there's such a wide difference of people's stories that there's no true consistency. Like for a believer, we have the Bible, we believe what we believe about the afterlife. That, some of the stuff is really vague and we don't know, but like there's some concrete things like Jesus, about the Father, heaven,
Yeah.
And what I realize is like there's some stories that I listen to, and to me they ring true because they'll talk about Jesus. Or this one chick, she overdosed and met Jesus, and when she came back to, she thought she was speaking in English, like it's all real, it's all real. But when the person that was there when she revived came back to, said, what language were you speaking? They weren't speaking English.
Oh, wow.
So to me, confirmation bias, I'm like, well, she woke up praying in tongues, and that could very well be true. But I can't sit here and ignore every other story that people put out there. Like, well, I found out I had a past life, and I found out that reincarnation is true when I had a near death.
Oh my gosh.
So there's this thing where, you can't just pick and choose in certain things. With near-death experiences, we're literally in the realm of personal experience and personal testimony.
Yeah.
And when you're in that, it's not very scientific. There's some scientific studies. There's some things that they understand, like they can monitor when someone is dying or come back. But they can't monitor scientifically what somebody saw, what they thought, what they encountered. The only thing they can say is like if somebody said, I left my body, went in the other room, I was looking at a medical chart and it had this person's name on it. And then I went back to my body. So when they came to, they're like, hey, who's so-and-so in the next room? Well, that's something they couldn't possibly know. So like that's some stuff you can measure. But when you're looking in the realm of that, it's literally the wild, wild west. And that's when you really need discernment. And you also have to have the possibility that some of these people might be lying.
Yes.
And some of these people might be
just
lying.
Deceived.
Or deceived. And even if they tell, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it.
Did I just open a can of worms with that one?
I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it.
Tell me.
So there's this guy who just recently, what he does is he likes to tell scary stories in first person. And he says some of the stories are true and some of them are just fake. Like he does it for entertainment. He's very convincing. He's very great to listen to, right?
Charismatic, if you will.
Charismatic. So he did a story in first person that he got invited to an Illuminati party and all this crazy stuff happened. Like we're talking Hollywood, the Illuminati, human sacrifice, like the whole thing. He tells this whole story very convincingly. Then he does a follow-up first person of, yeah, like it's totally true. And here's my evidence. And his evidence is not evidence. Like, he's just holding up this like envelope, thinks he's like, see, here's the letter they gave me, XYZ. And everyone just bought it, hook, line, and sinker, because there's a lot of people who don't know his channel and they don't know what he does and they don't know the point of his channel.
Okay.
So they just come across this video because somebody said, did you hear about the guy talking about his Illuminati party Hollywood experience? And they're like, no. And so everyone's watching this video and they're like, see, I knew it. This is another example of like what's going down in Hollywood, right? People, the comments and everything. He didn't expect it to, I mean, he knew it was going to blow up his channel, and he did it to blow up his channel. But also, he had already set up the premise that I don't always tell the truth on my channel. But see, no one who knows the channel, who just saw the video and hit subscribe, thinking he's telling true stories. He was on an interview on another podcast where he completely admitted on the podcast the whole thing was made up and fake. And what he did is he kind of just took elements of Dante's Inferno and as his inspiration. No, not Dante's Inferno. Well, like Dante's Inferno, but also the 7 Deadly Sins as his inspiration. And they kind of did like a conglomerate of all the random stories he's heard about Hollywood parties.
Oh my goodness.
So he kind of just did this amalgamation and then told a very compelling story. And
I would be really good at that. I'm not going to lie. I would be really good at that.
So guess what happens? People split into 3 groups. One, well, yeah, that's his channel. Of course he's lying or joking. It was not, it's like, It's a storyteller. That's what he does. It's entertainment. Duh. Then the second group. Oh my gosh, he lied to us.
Let me guess. Is there a group that was he's telling the truth, but he's not allowed to tell the truth, so he's telling he's like, okay, because I'm like, come on.
And the third group's like, we all know, bro. We know, bro. You're telling the truth.
Nudge. Yeah,
we know that they threatened your life and you had to retract your statement.
Oh my god.
And I'm like, oh my god, what have we come to as a society where someone can go, yeah, I was bull crapping.
Oh
man,
that's
my French.
That is so funny.
And yeah, it was totally made up, but and this is why he said, I made it up. I took some elements from this. I was inspired by the 7 Deadly Sins. And he wasn't super graphic. Like, he keeps it PG. Do you know what I mean?
And the thing is like he's doing like he didn't do anything that was out of character of what he does already on his channel.
Nope.
Like, that is what he does. So it's really just on the people who are discovering it that weren't doing their due diligence, like taking things at face value.
There are people, how I found out about this video is somebody else took the video and was playing it with their like little bit of commentary to get the views, and they were portraying it also like, dude, this guy's personal testimony, look at what he said, look what happened. And I was like, one, I'm not going to support this person's channel because they're stealing content. So no, I'm going to stop watching this video, and I'm going to find, also, he didn't give credit. He didn't say what this video was, didn't say where you could find it. I went and found it myself, and then I watched some of it, and I was like, this seems like a dramatization to me. Right. I was like, this seems a little drama-y. And then someone in the comments said, yeah, it was all a farce. He admitted it on the podcast, so-and-so's podcast. So I went to so-and-so's podcast to listen to it, and he's like, yeah, he's like, I'm really kind of shocked that everyone was so like dialed in.
That's really
funny. He wasn't gonna be upset because it's blowing up his channel.
Right.
Which is why he did it in the first place.
It's blowing up his channel, and it's what he does. That's the other thing. It's like, it's not like he was doing it just for the clicks and the views and the blow up. Like, that's in the vein of what he already does. So I'm okay with that. Like, I think that's cool.
I know this is a little bit of story time with Rachel, but like, this scenario just perfectly sums up to me confirmation bias.
Okay, so here's my plug, because we talk about confirmation, not my plug, but my wrench I'm throwing. I told Rachel when we're recording, I'm going to throw you something, and I want to hear what your response is. So we're talking in confirmation bias. Ultimately, like when Rachel was looking up the definition, I wrote down a couple of little blurbs. And the takeaway is like the search for information that supports your view and your attitude. Okay, so it's like actively searching for information to support what you think. Now, as we know on the internet, you can find evidence that supports anything. The sky is black, the sky is blue. You can find evidence for both. Like, so my question to you, Rachel, is Rachel and I both are scientifically and in practice supporters of a very low carb diet. And we both see the benefit and the merit of even a completely plant-free diet. Not that we always do that, but we can see the merit and the benefit scientifically as a human persons to not consuming plants and having like meat and animal-based diet. Okay. How do we know, Rachel, that all of the people who are not of this viewpoint, who are maybe of the polar opposite viewpoint, that we should never consume animal products and only have plant products, how do we know that we're not deceived and that they're actually?
Well, the people who are intellectually honest will say that not all the science is in. The people who will say, well, the science is in, are usually banking on stuff from the 60s and 70s and 80s, which has been shown to be, there's some holes in it. There's some fallacies in it. There's some, stuff that can be argued with, because there's a lot of people just don't understand scientific method and different things. Like
That's true.
There's data analysis studies, which you have the same set of data, but people will do different studies over time where they'll just throw something else, a different algorithm at it. They'll look at it a different way and they'll process the information. They'll come out with another outcome. The data never changed. The data was the same, but how it's interpreted changes. And if with anything in your life, you try to be as emotionally distant from what you want the outcome to be. So that's the confirmation bias, right? Usually we have confirmation bias is because we have an emotional attachment to the outcome. Like, I really love fuzzy animals and I don't like the idea that they're killed. So I have an emotional attachment to animals, which means I'm going to be automatically more biased towards stuff that points to veganism. Okay.
Sure.
If I'm like, I care about athletics, I care about health, screw the fuzzy animals. Or if I really like the taste of pork, I'm going to look at data. I'm not afraid to look at data that might point to eating meat is healthy. So when you have a true interest in that's why I like true scientists, because true scientists are like, we're going to study it, and whatever the outcome is the outcome is. And whether it fails or succeeds, we learn something, right?
Yeah, it's exciting either way.
It's exciting either way. And it's like a lot of nutrition science, people are very emotional invested because they went to school and they were taught a certain way. So they're like, I spent lots of money for my education. Now you're telling me that education is obsolete or outdated. Like, that's an emotional reason to be like, I don't want to question. There's you mean I've lived my life 10 years eating this particular diet and you're telling me it caused my autoimmune condition? Mm-hmm. What? There's all this stuff that can emotionally impact us.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it doesn't have to do with diet. It can be anything.
Sure.
When you're being presented with information, please be intellectually honest enough to be willing to at least hear the other side. So if someone tells you a radical claim about something, like, let's just make up a scenario. Joe Schmo next door, he really hates you and he's plotting to kill you.
Sure.
Right? And you go, really? Like, I've never had a problem with Joe Schmo. He's been great. Like, he's so nice to me. Like, no, take it from me. He's been plotting to kill you. And you're like, well, how do you know? Well, I overheard him on the phone outside saying that he was going to take you out.
What, got a crush on you.
Next day, Joe Schmo knocks on the door and goes, hey, you're really cute. I really like you. You want to go out with me? And you're like, no, because you're a serial killer and you're trying to kill me. I mean, that's a super ridiculous example.
That's
but
so funny.
You have to take the claim. You have to compare it to all your previous knowledge, which can also confirmation bias you. But just be like, okay, what's my past experience? Okay. Now, what are some other people's experiences? Personal testimony, XYZ. All right. Then you go, okay, is there any science? Like, is there any established scientific evidence for one thing or other? Because not everything we're talking about has to do with science, but some stuff does have to do with science.
Sure.
So you look at the science, and then you look at 1 or 2 videos that support, whatever the presentation is. You should question them because XYZ. You can't trust them because XYZ. You're like, okay, let me watch a couple of videos. And you're like, that sounds convincing. I didn't really like them anyway. But then you're like, but wait, just because I don't like somebody or had a bad feeling about them doesn't mean they're actually bad. Let me look at the opposing view. Then you go to the other side and you go, okay, what is the evidence for this or against it? Whatever the opposite is. At that point, you can then start to bring together a balanced view of what's going on. You ask the Lord and the Holy Spirit, like, help me. And you can't be emotionally tied to what the outcome is.
Yeah.
If you're emotionally tied to the outcome, you're going to make the outcome fit this, you're going to make that square peg fit in that round hole.
Listen, if you have a hard enough hammer.
Whether it fits or not, with a hard enough hammer, you're going to do it because you're emotionally invested. That's the thing. It's like if we don't have personal gain and it's really just about the truth being the truth and you're not living in fear. And that's why I think it's so key that Jesus said, do not worry. Do not take thought. Do not worry. Do not be afraid. The Bible says, do not be afraid a bazillion times. Like, it's because fear will get you to believe a lie quicker than probably any other emotion. Because humans want to self-protect and they want to self-preserve. And anytime we have a perceived threat, we're going to get more emotional about it and more emotionally invested in protecting ourselves. So if someone says, hey, this thing is dangerous, this thing is going to cost you, this is bad, does that have evidence to back it up? Or is it just testimonial? Is it just the random person? Like you said, Virginia, at the beginning, when we started talking was, did somebody on a video tell you something? And so you want to trust them.
Yeah. I was just going to say, you're right. Like you have to be really aware of your own biases and your own thoughts and, be able and open and willing. And I will say that a lot of that, it comes back to that like pride versus humility thing. If you're super set in your ways and you won't listen to somebody else's point of view, then that's pride. You need to be humble enough to be like, you know what? Either I might be wrong and I need to be willing to listen to the truth, or you could just say like, I absolutely know that this is the truth. But right, Jesus calls us to be kind and patient and all these things. So let me take a step back and at least listen to this person. That doesn't mean my opinion has changed, but I don't have to be a jerk either. So
confirmation bias is just something you want to keep an eye out. You want to be wary of. A lot of people didn't take debate in school. If you're on a debate team, you were required to argue both points convincingly.
Yeah, that'll change your brain right there.
Yes, like you would literally be like, the best pillows are pink. The best pillows are white. You would literally have to present a whole argument as to why pink pillows are the best. And then present a whole thing of why white pillows are the best. And you could compete in both things to possibly win both debates. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be locked in. It's okay to question someone's claims. It's okay to be like, that doesn't sound right. What does the establishment say? That doesn't sound right. What does science say? That doesn't sound right. What does the Bible say? Like that, you know what I mean? It's okay. And do not fall into the trap of being emotionally manipulated into an outcome, whether by your own emotions or by the emotional manipulation of other people.
Boom. Hot topics here for you on this Saturday morning.
Lordy have mercy.
Hope you enjoy it. Hey, listen, if you did, we'd love for you to drop a comment, a like, a share, tell a friend. Like, did you know? Make it a date. I don't know. Bring some coffee over. Whatever. Watch it on the couch with each other. I'm all for that. Anyway, that's our show for today. If you're not already subscribed right here on the Sevenfold, we'd love it if you would stick around and join us. We do lots of fun things And we'd like to have you around with us. So thanks for being here, guys. We'll
Yeah,
see you next
thank
time.
you. Love you all. Have a great week. See you next time.
Bye.